I was driving through the city of Chicago yesterday. I was down in the South Loop where I used to live. And as I'm writing Liberation Mechanics, I'm finding all these memories are coming back. And I'm writing a chapter now on what I'm calling the Energy Dojo, which is something I got involved in when I was in my 20s, water method, Tai Chi, energy practices. And I studied it. I've been doing it my entire life now. Doing it, not talking about it, reading about it, or thinking about it, doing it every day for years. So I went down to where I was in the South Loop of Chicago. I lived for years. And I wanted to bring more memories back. And I'm thinking about the Trump election. I feel fine um, um, about it. Not a fan, not the point. And that's the point. Not a fan, not the point. Who cares? I care. Uh, however, um, how to move on is key for me. How to move on, because we have to move on when we have change. Attachment to a situation in fixed time isn't how life works. I know that. So I know better than to hold on to anything of any kind of an opinion, belief, or a conviction. Why would I do that? It's not going to help me or anybody else. So I'm driving back north. I live north of the city now. And I saw the Trump Tower and I saw the big Trump. And every time I used to see it, I get a charge like, oh my God, how did they let him do that? It's ruining the skyline. So I get upset. Not this time. I just looked at it and I was neutral. Neutral. I'm not a Trump supporter. Brian Muka is, who runs our Daily Invincibility Dojo. The person I am closest with in the world in terms of business is a Trump supporter. I love Kamala Harris. I'm a Kamala Harris supporter. I'm not indifferent. We're fine. And I saw the Trump sign and I didn't feel anything except, oh, there's the Trump sign. And then I looked in my closer field of vision, halfway, there was a mural in the neighborhood I was driving through that said, I'm speaking. And it was a mural dedicated to Kamala Harris. And I thought, wow, what a perfect moment. I see the Trump sign, and then I see I'm speaking. And I thought, yes. So here's what I see. Moving on. What happens now? When the hangover ends, how to move on, whether you love or hate Trump. So this is for everyone, not just for me. This is what I see. So I'm listening to Peter Thiel from the PayPal Mafia being interviewed by Barry Weiss. And she's got a great new media company that's took off. And she's doing it on Substack, which I love. Former New York Times, opposing now something. And I'm listening to them opposing something. So now they have a we won. And I'm like, you did? You won what? I don't see you won anything. So I'm looking, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, this whole crowd. They won. They won. They won. I'm like, well, you won what? And Mark Andreessen, now they're going to take over the world. Kennedy, they're going to reform the government. They're going to do this. I'm like, God, is that old thinking? Wake up. It's old thinking. That's what I see. I see old, stale thinking from them. Not about the beliefs, but the idea that you have to have a belief. And they have a belief. And I'm like, your belief's in the way. Can't you see that? And I think the answer is no, they can't. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about that. Why would I be concerned? And I'm not. I'm just noticing it. I'm like, wow, they're stuck in old thinking. I'm not scared about it. It's fine. But I can see it. I'm like, the idea of this belief and I believe this and this is my opinion is the opinion projector way of being. And I'm like, that is old thinking. We've moved on. Many of us have moved on. We don't think like that, you know? So I'm like, all right, you guys are in charge now. Let's see how it goes. I'm just going to watch. And I'm listening to them and I'm thinking, you're not talking about anything except your opinions. You're projecting your opinions. And they're on a side. I'm like, there's no sides. That's old thinking. You're creating a side that doesn't even exist because you want to be right and you want to win. Old thinking. I'm like, well, they're going to do it. There's nothing we can do about it. And I'm not concerned. It's fine. They'll evolve in time. And then I heard truth mixed in. So what I hear is opinion when people say you, we, and they're forcing an opinion, old thinking. But then I also hear experience sharing at the same time. So Barry Weiss saying, I left the New York Times because I wanted to get away from woke or narrow think. I'm like, well, you just created narrow thinking on the other side because now you have a belief like they do. It's the same thing. The contents of the belief are different, but you just did the same thing you walked away from. But the experience sharing was her need to do that. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. And, I see it from Peter Thiel as well. And then the attachment of credibility to prove validity. So she set up the interview saying, Peter Thiel, he knows because look, he made billions and he's a genius. And well, yeah, of course he is. And he sees the investment opportunities and he gets, I don't know, so what? That's just social proof and proof of authority, proof of life. And I'm like, old thinking, old thinking. Then I'm like, oh my God, there's a new social media channel that looks like Twitter called Blue Sky. My wife shared it with me. She's like, look at this. And I know this is going to happen because I've been talking about this for over a year, this ad network stuff, Facebook and Google. And it's like, that stuff's going to collapse at some point, because it's just principle based. It's people are tired of it. How long? I have no idea. Doesn't matter. I don't care. I care. It's paradox. And Peter Thiel thinks in paradoxes. And I'm like, wow, that's really smart. But he's attached to these old beliefs. So he's evolving over time. Doesn't happen overnight. He'll evolve into new thinking, or he won't. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm just noticing because I notice what's going on. I always have. Now, I see Blue Sky. Who started that? Jack Dorsey and some other people. He used to run Twitter. I'm like, well, it looks like Twitter. And I started reading it. And it's all 40% of the country's an idiots. 40 all Trump supporters, they're racist, they're terrible. And I'm like, old thinking. Same thing. There's no difference to me between Barry Weiss, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, any of these characters, Elon Musk, and people on Blue Sky escaping from X because they're escaping Elon Musk and the horrible Trump supporters who want their agenda understood and see the other side that doesn't even exist as bad. Old thinking. That's old thinking. A lot of us don't think like that. So Brian and I did a thing on Wednesday, which is up on our podcast. If you go see it at our content page and on Substack, where we were like, oh, you're happy Trump won. And I'm like, well, that sucked. I wish that I love Kamala Harris. And I think the Democratic convention is what's next. And people are like, well, the Democrats lost. And I said, not completely. They lost the election because the country wants it to break everything. And I want it all to break too. The healthcare system, the technology infrastructure. Oh, what about that, Peter Thiel? And you guys created the damn thing. It's a mess. Fix it. You invested in Facebook. You're part of the problem in that aspect. Freedom, liberation, the concept of you know, no identity. In other words, Peter Thiel's a gay man and a conservative or libertarian, not conservative, libertarian. I'm like, of course, that's just being yourself. The problem is the attachment to the belief of the word ism, libertarianism. Then you can't think anymore because you have a belief running around filtering everything. That's the confusion he's in. And I just see it so clearly. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's not my job to wake anybody up and elevate their perspective because he's where he is and the people on Blue Sky are where they are. And there's nothing wrong with any of it. That's the point. There's nothing wrong with any of it. I have no answers for anyone except myself. And I don't have answers for myself either. That's a paradox. What I have is a way to get out of the way of my mind. That's the problem. The mind is creating all these opinions and beliefs and projecting them out into the world in opposition to something that appears to be contradictory to my opinions, but it doesn't exist. It's not real because there is no hierarchy in reality. We are manufacturing, I should say, I am manufacturing a hierarchy in my own mind. And I've been an opinion projector for years where I'm like, no, this side, no, that side. And actually, I really never was. I just would take the opposite point of view because I saw points of view. So what happened with me is someone would come at me with a belief, you know, and they would say, blah, 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 blah. So projecting their opinion based on all the stuff they read or their opinions, often well informed and wrong because they're opinions. Because opinions are always wrong at the end of the day, from my perspective, because I'm looking at it a different way. So I'm trying to I look at things as true or not true from my perspective, not yours, because I don't know yours. What's true or not true from your perspective is different than mine, because you're different than me. That's the point. Now I look at women, and again, let's go back to the Trump side. I look at the Trump thing. People are like, awesome. Now we get to break everything because it's all sucks. I'm like, yeah, I agree. Let's break it all. Government, education, let's break it all. Can't reform it. Let's break it. Blockbuster's gone. Sears is gone. It's the same stuff. Let's get rid of Google. Let's get rid of Facebook. Let's get rid of the technology people in Silicon Valley who think they know better than everyone else. Let's get rid of them too. What replaces it? Connection, unification, coming together. I call that liberation mechanics. So you can't just say, let's get rid of this part that I don't like. What about your home? Start with your own house. How much money can you extract out of the economy with your tech infrastructure before it creates an impact that's negative because the technology sucks? Is that true or not? True, not true. For me, I'm like, oh my God. Now, we have somebody who's going to join our Entrepreneur Experience campus who's going to run a weekly technology clarity session who told me, oh, it's fine. He says, I know the hacks. He says, I can get around the Chrome nightmare and the Restream nightmare where people can't log in. And I'm like, you can? He's like, oh, yeah, it's fine. Well, the technology doesn't suck for them because they know how to use it. To me, it's in the way. It's just in the way. I need it. I'm using advanced technology. I always go into the new advanced technology that's useful. I don't care about technology. I hate it. I'd rather just meet at the coffee shop. How can I build a global movement of entrepreneurs, coaches, and service providers from the local coffee shop? We have good coffee shops too. I don't have to go to Starbucks. I will sometimes, um, but I don't want to. And I don't want to buy from Amazon because it's a bot for me, from my perspective. So I look at all this technology stuff and I'm like, get rid of that crap in those companies. They're taking too much money out of the economy. Don't they ever talk to Warren Buffett? Haven't they learned anything? No, apparently not. So I'm like, you guys have these opinions. This You're part of the problem. So start at home. Truth, not truth, comes from inside. It's looking at your own life. And they are. So I look at Peter Thiel, I look at Barry Wo they're looking at their own life, and they're saying, "I don't wanna be part of woke." I don't either. I was, attacked by the woke mafia in a men's retreat, like, years ago, and they imposed their white supremacy stuff on me, and I'm like, "Do you know what my racial history is?" I know my racial history. I've been working on it for a long time. I'm a white person in the America. So I've been thinking a lot about how I think about race, how I think about black people, all the reading I've done, the Malcolm X movies, and um, learning from Ta-Nehisi Coates, but from my own experience. Your opinion about race means nothing. Nothing. The only thing that matters is your experience of race identity in the United States from your own life experience. That I want to know. I don't want your opinion about race because you don't know anything about it, because it's just another ism of an opinion or a belief projected out into the world because you look at the world and you take that in as truth. That's not how it works. How does it work? It's an inner journey, and they're on it. I can see it. They got out of what? The matrix of the crazy university system. We're the weird professors, Peter Thiel said. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. When you hesitate to say what you really think, you're woke. You're stuck. What does woke mean? It means stuck in a thought process, in a belief system. That's all it means. Now, if your belief system is libertarianism or Ayn Rand stuff from, you're a prime mover or whatever, it's the same thing as a belief system around I'm a progressive, or I have white privilege and need to feel terrible about it or whatever. It's the same. There's no difference from my perspective. Now, I know a lot of people don't see things that way. They see a difference. I don't. That's just my perspective. It doesn't mean I'm better or right or worse. And it's not my opinion. I'm talking about my experience of noticing these things. I started watching ABC News Nightline in the Iran hostage crisis as it was happening when I was a kid. And I think that's when it started. So I'm looking around and I'm like, what is going on? What's true? And I remember when I was in DC, and I used to be in AA. So I got to meet a lot of people that were older than me, which was awesome. So I met some incredible people in DC that ran things. I'm a good networker. So I networked my way up. And one guy was a professor at Georgetown. He's a black guy. And he's telling me how the Soviet Union's not so bad. Well, I'm listening to this. I'm like, that's not true. Why did he believe that? Because he has a belief system about justice and racial justice. And I'm like, you are embedded in this belief system. And I knew it as a kid. I was like 22 years, 23 years, 20, no, I was younger than that, 18, 19, I don't remember. And I'm like, that's not right. So I went to the bookstore with the communist books, the socialist books, the progressive books in DC, and I'm reading them. I'm reading Karl Marx, and I'm like, this is right in terms of that perspective of understanding the world from that point of view. But belief in it is where the confusion is. And filtering everything you see through these beliefs is not getting you to truth. Let me say this, it's not getting me to truth. Maybe it's getting him to truth because that's where he is. Maybe that's what he needs to do because of his own life experience, his own racial history in the United States. Think about that. As a black man teaching in what's basically a white university, Georgetown. So he's going to have a different kind of perspective. So I want to know what it is. And I heard him, his perspective was Soviet Union's not so bad. And I'm like, I don't see it like that. Now, Reagan was elected 1980. I'm there in DC a couple years later, and everybody's now my age. They're all going after the money. They all want to go to New York and become investment bankers or consultants or whatever. They're chasing the money, and they love Reagan. And I'm like, it doesn't make sense either. But the idea of Paul Volcker and Reagan busting the economy, inflation, and back in the back of the economy and telling the truth, Paul Volcker was amazing. And he's like, I watched this, I remember him and the quotes. He's like, what's the problem with the economics profession? They don't know anything about the economy because they're stuck in this, again, isms, economics isms. And he's like, no, we have an economy here where people live. Let's focus there. What did they do? People hated Reagan in the circles I was in, but there were other circles where people deified him. And I saw that, the true believers, followers of Reagan. I'm like, what are you doing? I remember sitting next to a guy and I was like, what do you think? What do you care about? It was a philosophy class. He's like, well, I'm a libertarian. I'm like, why? He says, because of this. And he told me the philosophy. And I'm like, why don't you just learn it? Like, why do you believe it as a belief system? Now you can't think clearly because now when you look at the world, everything's filtered through this ism of libertarianism or progressivism or whatever the hell the ism is. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But it did to him. Why? I have no idea. His background? I don't know how he grew up. My mother lives in a community filled with libertarianisms, and every house is different. One guy built a tennis court in a residential neighborhood, and he had tennis lessons there. And he got a special zoning thing to do this because he knew the mayor of the city, of the village, something like that. So he slipped it in, he snuck it in, and he started building. They couldn't stop him. And then people are building McMansion castles that just look ridiculous. It's all a Frank Lloyd Wright kind of environment. It's natural. It's in a forest preserve. I'm like, what are you doing? Well, they're libertarians. So they think they can do whatever they want. I'm like, well, the impact of that is a mess. Is it right or wrong? It's not relevant. What's relevant to me is impact. If you take all the money out of the economy because you're Amazon or Google or whatever, there's a negative impact on many people, on me, for sure. As the bot attacks of technology bots and trade immigration not immigration, bots of what do you call it? Trade, the free trade bots that crushed my family business that I was running and building up. There was an impact on me of that because no one thought. They call it flyover country. That's where I live. Flyover country. I spent a lot of time in Indiana, Missouri, Southern Illinois, the hood in Detroit, Toledo, Chicago. Those are where my customers were. It's not flyover country to me. Minneapolis. I've been to those places for years. So people are like, oh, there's so many opinions about it too. Oh, they're stupid Trump supporters. I'm like, those were my customers. And some of the politics was, I remember this woman from Indianapolis, and I was reading Main Street by Sinclair Lewis, so now I know everything, and Bughouse Square and the Chicago stuff, uh, socialism, communism, and she freed herself from the small, narrow thinking of the Minnesota town. And I told this woman in Indianapolis, who was one of my best customers, about it, and she was so furious. She pounded on the table and she's like, my ancestors settled this territory. She was talking about Indiana. And she was like fourth generation settler or something. I don't know. I can't do math. And Peter Thiel could do math. I can't do math. Elon Musk can do math. I can't do math. Brian Mucco, who's my partner in this thing, can do math. I can't do math. Fine, right? Does that make me, because I don't have $50 billion, not knowing? No, that's artificial. So she looks at me and she's like, my ancestors settled the territory. Shut the hell up. And I was like, you're right. So was I. Narrow-minded, small town Midwest. Yeah, narrow-minded. Is it bad? No, it's narrow-minded though. She was narrow-minded, super narrow-minded. She was a great customer though. I made a ton of money working with her. That's the point. Let her be herself and don't impose my woke view on her. Because I was woke, meaning I know now because I read Sinclair Lewis, Main Street, and other things. So now I know what's right. That's the problem. It's the attachment to the beliefs. So I'm like, how do I explain this to people? And I thought, I don't know how to explain this. And then people think I'm being an asshole. So I don't want that. And I got this company now, and I want it to succeed and I want to make money. but I don't want to not say what I see, share from experience. So you can project onto me whatever you want. It's got nothing to do with me. And I don't have to take the projections. I can just say, you're split in your mind between this side and that side. And you see me as like you because you think that way. You project that onto me, thinking I'm doing something I'm not doing, whether it's related to marketing, business, or political dialogue. It's got nothing to do with me. That's you. It doesn't make you bad. Most people are like that, but not all of us. A lot of people are freed from their projections because they own them. And this is where Barry Weiss and Peter Thiel, I see, are going, but they're not there yet because they're still attached to the idea. Ayn Rand, same thing back then. Her projection was around evil Bolsheviks because they took her dad's company and destroyed her country. And she came to the United States and she's like, this is better. Well, it was. And then she says, the government here is the problem. Well, it was during Eisenhower and Nixon in particular. The conservatives, too. They were running wage and price. Nixon did wage and price controls. They were trying to control the economy. Oh, forget about that, huh? See, it doesn't matter. It's the times. At the time, what she was saying made a ton of sense. The prime movers, the entrepreneurs, the industrialists trying to do something new. It's a different time, folks. We're not, it's different. We're in a different society than back then. Things have changed a little, don't you think? But it's not a matter of her philosophy of, what do you call it? Objectivism, being right or wrong. It's not relevant. It's understanding what she's saying. And what she was saying is, the Bolsheviks destroyed my country. Don't believe in that stuff. Don't believe in this kind of equality based on giving to others at your expense. And there's a hidden little mind control thing going on there with, I haven't finished Atlas Shrugged. I'm only on page like 87. It's 1,000 pages. But I get it. And we'll see what's coming. I'm excited. But I'm like, no, don't believe in this. Don't take this as a belief system. Learn from it, understand it. At that time in the United States, that book was really important. And what Reagan did in the 80s to me was really important. Don't believe in it, though, as a belief system. The progressivism that came out in the 70s, the late 60s, was really important to break the back of a narrow-mindedness from the 50s. Really important. The Jack Kerouac folks, I got it right up here on my wall. The Beats coming down from Dostoevsky, the existentialists, Picasso, breaking the belief systems of how the world appears was important then. We needed it. What do we need now? Liberation mechanics is what I call it. It's not mine. It's what's coming into the world. I see it everywhere. It's the coming together. It's unification. It's, oh, you're a woman right now. You're grieving because you see this guy as a sexual predator, an alpha male sexual predator who won, and they voted for him. If you're a lot of Black women in particular, they're like, oh my God, how is this possible in my country? Oh, I get it. You're grieving right now. How do you get over that? That's not my job to figure that out. I'm listening. I have a neighbor who's, I'm not going to get into that because I can't, because there's some confidentiality stuff, but she's grieving. They're grieving. Women are grieving. Not all of them. A lot of them voted for him. A lot of white women voted for Trump. A lot of Black men, less Black women. Makes sense. I get it. Because from your perspective, it speaks to you. So there's a gloating going on. Now you got to get over that. Because now, you know what? Trump, Elon, you guys own the damn place. I want results. 3 months. Real results. That's what I was told when I was doing sales. I had a boss years ago. He said, it's going to take you 12 months to make me $1 million. And it did. And I made him $1 million. in sales, and I got my cut. He's like, it's going to take you a year. Then I worked for the bots from Silicon Valley, the venture capitalist type people, private equity, 3 months. They don't know anything about business development, sales, nothing, nothing. They want it in 3 months. Trump, 3 months. You got 3 months. Fix it all. You said you can do it.